Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on this video, or as I like to say, maybe your finger slipped somewhere between my video and someone else's and this was all a mistake. Either way, I was happy to have you for the time that I did. And if you're leaving, goodbye. Now, normally I'm not big on award events just in general. I find them pretty boring despite maybe I have some interest in the content or awards that are being awarded to awards that are being awarded to certain games and whatnot, whatever. I wanted to give you maybe some of my brief thoughts and some highlights on some of my favorite personal announcements from the show. Obviously, just probably goes without saying, there are, think like maybe over 30 announcements in this whole show if you add it all up together. So I can't go over everything. I'm just gonna go over some of my personal highlights. So this video would probably be much longer if I did do any of that. So there will be a link down below for the full list of announcements if maybe this is a little too brief for you or you want to just read up on any of those. But if you're new here, and I'm going to assume that you are and you like this kind of stuff, or maybe you just like game discussion type videos, maybe consider subscribing. No pressure, of course. Or at the very least, just remember me next time you go on YouTube and you see my stupid face on a thumbnail and you go, hey, I've seen that guy's video before. Maybe this will be better than the last one I watched. I don't know. Do what you want. I will, of course, include timestamps, at least to the best of my ability. That way, in case you want to jump around or I'm saying something that is making you so irrationally angry, you have to go to another section, but you're not so angry that you don't want to click off the video. Totally understand, and I get it. Some of my general thoughts are this. And I just want to throw this out there. I think from what I've read and seen, unless I'm reading it wrong, it seems like it's pretty unanimously agreed upon that this, based on my lurking on social media platforms and my own personal opinion, it was a pretty good showing. The announcements were paced pretty fairly between all the games, and there were a lot of games being shown off and even balanced with ads. And honestly, there was a lot of good stuff to actually be excited for that was shown off. And we'll get into a lot of those announcements in a moment. But just like off the top of my head for like games that were like game of show for me was maybe like Jedi Survivor, of course, and then there was like Armored Core and Final Fantasy 16 and definitely much more that we're going to talk about. I've seen some talk about this, but I'll also just throw this out there just to acknowledge it. I do find it rather peculiar, as a lot of people have. I know Ryan McCaffrey has been lighting up Xbox about this, is that one of the most visible and open platforms in the industry as of late, at least, that being Xbox, didn't really have much to tease or show off for these awards. Whether that's the whole thing with the Activision deal or the FTC, nobody really knows. But either way, I don't know if that's a great excuse based on my read of the situation. I realize it's kind of a lose-lose situation regardless, because you either kind of show off that stuff that is still a ways away and just not ready, so you're relegated to just cinematic trailers, which nobody likes, myself included, or maybe you show some stuff that's just not quite ready and maybe shit on for looking exactly that, not ready. And you can't just force things out just because you need to have it there for a showcase or you need to do something. I guess I could see the logic of not forcing teams to show things just because you don't want to take away time from their development or even show too much when it may not be out for a while. That's just the case for some of these games. Maybe they're a long ways away still, which I don't know why, because a lot of them have been in development for a long time, but that's a whole other discussion. But aside from that and a couple other weird moments, and obviously the whole thing with the kid just hijacking the Elden Ring Game of the Year award thing, that was pretty funny actually. Yeah, pretty good show. There's potentially a bigger conversation that needs to be had at some point where we can maybe do a bit better on what games are nominated and what for what categories, maybe add some categories in there, or when the show even happens. I feel like it should be done in like maybe January or at least early February, and let every 2022 game have a shot at the 2022 VGAs. I don't think we need to get caught up on the, well, it didn't meet this date, that's why that's not there, that's why that's snubbed. Let's just not do that. Maybe just think about that going forward. Let's get one big one out of the way for myself. Returnal on PC. Easily one of the best games that come out last year, and I don't even care what you think. My personal game of the year last year. The gameplay was so much fun. The atmosphere is just fantastic. I recently went back to it this past year for the Tower of Sisyphus update, which adds kind of like an endless mode, some new trophies. They also had a co-op, which if you like that at all, that's pretty cool. I was immediately reminded why this game is so great. It's addicting when you get that adrenaline streak going and Celine's suit integrity is up, that's your health, you got the good gear, you don't want to stop. I would have moments where I'm just like going for a specific run or a specific item in the run that I picked up, and when you get it, you get the next piece after a new cycle starts, and I would just say, you know, I'm having too much fun on this cycle and I'm doing too well, especially on the endless mode with the different weapons and buffs. I would just keep playing until I died. If you missed it on PS5, either go play it on PS5 now or wait till it comes to PC. Easy recommendation. Especially imagining if you spent a lot of money, got that beefy PC to max out a bunch of settings for your games. Oh man, easy recommendation. Returnal is a fantastic game. Given the update with more content and co-op, it's arguably an even better game now than when it launched initially. So if you're interested at all, Returnal on PC. I do want to mention this game called Post Trauma. This is kind of what people have been saying is kind of like a Silent Hill style horror game. They really nailed the atmosphere on this one for me. I'm not really a big horror person, but every once in a while, I do find myself kind of drawn to these types of games or these types of stories. I'm fascinated overall about the psychological aspects of horror, the storylines, the themes. I do find that interesting more than the horror, which, if that makes sense at all to you, but it interests me a lot. So this is one of those I would say keep an eye on. I don't think it's the most revolutionary or even the best looking or most interesting title that was shown, but it's definitely not a no for me. Sometimes when you get these like smaller horror games, they can kind of suck you in. They suck me in with their stories. Even if they're not that prominent or even directly told, even if they're not that well told. Like I think about a game like Layers of Fear, which its story is not the best overall in my opinion, but I find myself just kind of interested in that world of the game nonetheless, and I can see that with this game. This one for me, and I think a lot of people would say this when they see it, Replaced. An impressive show for me, simply because his visuals are just so vivid and distinct and beautiful. It's got that 2D, like 3D look to it, mixed with a bit of pixel art. It honestly looks stunning. I can honestly see this being kind of like a sleeper hit when it comes out, or even being one of those kind of, I guess you'd call it an indie darling, of course. Now that having been said, that's just purely based on the visuals and the brief snippet we saw, so I could always be wrong, but we did get a little bit of a glimpse of gameplay and whatnot, so I could be wrong about the fact that I could be wrong about it. But right now, it shows a lot of promise, and I would definitely keep an eye on this one. It looks fantastic. The next notable one for me was Hades 2. I came to the original Hades pretty late, and I got it on PS5, and honestly, the game is great. It's a good mix of action, a little bit of role-playing obviously in your different builds through different runs, even though at its heart, it's a roguelike game. The brilliant thing about Hades was how it took that roguelike mechanic of dying and repeating cycles and kind of worked it into how it dealt and gave you its narrative and how you understood and progressed in a lot of ways. Though it being a roguelike. Now I want to be clear, this is just my opinion, this is how I feel about roguelikes. It could get a bit repetitive at times, since with these games, this is how I find it, is that you often get your biggest gains in the beginning, and as you go on, you get a little bit better and stronger with the permanent upgrades, but the progress can sometimes feel like it's grinding to a halt. Again, that's more of a personal thing for me with Hades. Not a reason not to play Hades 2. Hades 2 similarly looks stylish and the music kicks in and you're like, all right, this is gonna be cool. But really, more than anything, it looks pretty similar to the original. And that's not a bad thing, because like I said, it's a fantastic game, and the sequel looks to build upon that further. Then we have Judas. Judas comes from Ghost Story Games and BioShock alumni Ken Levine. Game looks great, and one of those surprising announcements that kind of just comes out of nowhere. Not so much that we didn't know that they were working on a game, more so that you weren't expecting it to look like it does and look as good as it does. It definitely looks like BioShock, but not so much, at least for me, and granted, I'm coming from the perspective of having just played BioShock for the first time this year. It feels like it's not necessarily a blatant BioShock and everything but name only type of game. It's its own thing. So that's good. Definitely got my eye on this one, and I can kind of see it definitely like gracing my shelf with its art on that case, the key art, sometime in the future, you know, just looking at it on the shelf. Like, that's a good one. That's a good one. Then we have Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. We got another cool look at it. Not much to say on it beyond really awesome. They got Kevin Conroy to be Batman in this game. Obviously, the man's a legend, and we'll miss him pretty dearly. So while we didn't see anything new here, it was a nice moment to see them confirm that he will be in this game. Jedi Survivor was probably one of my personal games of the show. Fallen Order was a great game that was just shockingly good given the publisher that we all know and hate. Really glad to see the sequel seems to be no different. The difference this time is that the game series, not just the studio, has the reputation that they didn't have the last time, that the game didn't have last time. Fallen Order was such a big success that it made EA execs, or EA itself, wake up from their slumber, and they were like, oh, so wait, so you're telling us that if you make some good single player games, people will just buy them and play them? Oh, like, yes. Yeah, buddy. You got it. Not much is known about the story, but that's totally cool with me because I am probably, after I record and put the stuff out for this video and have watched this trailer, on a media blackout from here on out. But we got a glimpse of the game. The dual wielding returns, as does lightsaber customization, which I know there's a kind of a debate going on if it's practical or not. As impractical as it may be, I actually kind of like the crossguard saber. I think it's pretty awesome looking. But regardless, the game looks fantastic, and I'm very happy Cal has dropped that poncho look. For one, I just didn't like his outfits from the first game at all. I hated them, even though the game was great. So it's looking good, Respawn. Definitely looking like a day one get for me. Forspoken has a demo out. I don't know why I did that in an accent, but I have to be honest. Nothing about this game has sold me on it. I want to be excited for it. I don't know why I want to be, but I just haven't seen anything on it that makes me think that it's a must-have for me. I did download the demo, and I do plan on trying it over the coming days just to get a feel for it and to see if it's anything that's going to grab me at all, but I doubt it's going to move the needle much for me. The gameplay here could be great, but the telltale sign for me will be if the story is as cringe as it seems, at least in the trailers that we have seen, where she's talking way too much about, whoa, look at that thing that I just did. Stuff like that. If it's good enough to stand in place of that story being what it is, I don't know. I'll share my thoughts if I think I have anything worth saying that's different from anyone else after I try it, but right now, I'm very just meh on this game. I'm not really that crazy about it. The trailer for Death Stranding 2 was very much Hideo Kojima, bizarre and obtuse, but also very stylish and specific with its intent. I just got the director's cut of the original on Black Friday sale, so I'll have to check out the first one before this one comes out, but I will say that Hideo Kojima knows how to cut a trailer, man. It's kind of awesome to see Kojima build on that kind of legacy that he had with the Metal Gear franchise with a new franchise. So honestly, it looks cool. That's all I really have much to, I don't have much else to say on that, I should say. Going to have to check it out when it gets closer, but for now, the trailer is very suitable for a Kojima trailer. It's got all the twists and turns, and it's way longer than most trailers end up being. He later said on the stage at the Game Awards that he had a whole script for this game written, and then the pandemic happened, so he rewrote it, and even jokingly saying that no one could now claim he was predicting the future, or at least he didn't want anyone to say that he was predicting the future. Pretty funny. We gotta look at the new DLC expansion for Horizon Forbidden West as well, Burning Shores. I will say this, the more distance I've gotten from Horizon Forbidden West, the more I just don't think of it as fondly as I did when I first started playing it. No doubt it's a good game, but I think given the amount of content that's already available in Forbidden West, it's hard for me to be excited about them adding even more content for an already large game that already feels kind of bloated to me. Felt kind of bloated, I should say. That being said, I will keep an eye on it and check it out. I'm just not that big on Horizon. I think it's a good series. I think it's a good IP. So right now, my gut check is, looks cool, but I may have just had my fill of Horizon. We'll see how I feel when it gets closer, but right now it's a very light, Not much to say on this one, but we got another look at Phantom Liberty, Cyberpunk 2077's newest expansion. It's awesome to see the kind of resurgence Cyberpunk has had in the last year or so, beginning with its current gen launch in February to, well, Edge Runner is just coming out, and now we are here with this Phantom Liberty expansion upon us soon. Not much else to say there except that Idris Elba is in it, which is nice. I really again, don't have much else to say other than that. Armored Core, of course, from the legendary From Software, who nicely snagged a Elden Ring Game of the Year win. Was there ever any doubt? Was there? I don't think so. Surprising on the one hand for me, because it's on the one hand, it's coming so soon, and the other is that they're going with Armored Core 6. I don't know if this is going to be in the same vein as the other Armored Core games, so it's a bit odd for me that they would just make a 6 and not maybe just go for a kind of like a modern day reboot of the series, given how old the franchise is. Now, I don't know what the kind of feeling is on that from the Armored Core fans, but maybe you feel differently, let me know. I just feel, given the pedigree of the studio, either way, it's going to be a hotly anticipated title. I do wonder if it's going to take some of that Souls energy in any way and kind of inject a new style into these games. Really excited to hear and see it nonetheless, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the coming year, if it really is coming next year, which who knows at this point. Finally, with Final Fantasy XVI. I haven't really looked at the trailer too much beyond putting some clips in this video for you, and I want to say, as someone who is relatively new to Final Fantasy, I only really started my journey in 2019 with the original Final Fantasy VII. I don't have much to say about this beyond from what it looks like and from what I've seen, what I have heard. Looks great. My personal feeling on Final Fantasy is that since they're all pretty different from each other, and with only themes and items and magic having similar names and similar creatures that you're fighting and similar enemies, everyone is going to have one that they prefer or like over the other, since they all have different gameplay mechanics and whatnot. And there's just so many at this point that you can find one you like. I'm confident in saying that. Though, game looks pretty hot, so I'll just say this. My body's ready. Honorable mentions so we can make sure that we acknowledge everything announced in this show. Dead Cells DLC Return to Castlevania, Vampire Survivors on mobile right now. Valiant Hearts coming home on Netflix's mobile app exclusively. That one's a little weird. Hellboy, Web of Weird. I don't know if I said that right. Viewfinder, Among Us, new game mode called Hide and Seek, After Us, Street Fighter 6, Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon, Ghostbusters, Rise of the Ghost Lord VR, Destiny 2 expansion Lightfall, The Last of Us Part 1 comes out on PC March 3rd, 2023, Earthblade, Dune Awakening, Immortals of Avium, Tekken 8, Nightingale, Baldur's Gate 3, Wayfinder, Fire Emblem Engage's Expansion Pass, Diablo 4, Blue Protocol, Remnant 2, Transformers Reactivate, Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden, Warhammer 40,000, Space Marine 2, Meet Your Maker, Crash Team Rumble, Lords of the Fallen, and Crime Boss Rocket City. Everything else we talked about individually, and as you can see, there were a lot, so definitely check these games out if I didn't go over it and you're interested at all in them. Really cool show. A lot of good stuff. I'm sure we all have our own opinions on the awards specifically, or like what should have won what, or what should have been nominated for what, but we can all agree it was much better paced this year. At least I hope that we can all agree upon that, and I think it's a great kind of template for the future for what's next. Again, kind of disappointing, I think, for Xbox fans mostly, because they just sat this one out in terms of major reveals, and I think that will likely change by next year ideally, but for this year it will be a bit disappointing if you're an Xbox fan or a big Xbox fan wondering what the fuck is going on, man. I think I've taken up enough of your time though, and if you did get this far, I do appreciate you quite a bit. Thanks for watching, and maybe check out some of my other videos or something. Maybe you'll see one where I ramble endlessly about other things that are not with the Game Awards, specific games or specific things in games, current games, not current games. I'll see you in the next one, but for now, I just want to say, enjoy your life. Or try to.